I have Sheri and Brandon up here with me, so much better now. Are we ready? All right. So for this part of the presentation, we will go through the project background for the Entrepreneurship and Innovation Investment Strategy. We'll talk you through our approach, which really includes these next sections, and so I won't run through those and read them to you. I'll turn it over to Sheri to talk about some of the work we've done already, and Brandon will lead a talk about metrics, and then we'll talk about next steps. So project background, just again bringing everybody up to the same page. The state GOVA Virginia board hired Techotomy to conduct region by region studies around entrepreneurship development. And so building on that, the state board allowed each of the, or gave permission, or gave the authority to each of the regional councils to then invest in funding an investment strategy around entrepreneurship and innovation. Our region decided to put out a letter of interest. MBC was one of the respondents, as was Longwood. The regional council came back to us and asked, would we work together? Well, as you've already heard, we were already working together because we were planning something through the SOVA Innovation Hub. So we had a conversation and said, sure, we'll work together. And so that's how we came to all be standing here together today. So our approach is kind of 5 parts, and so one is research and training, one is ecosystem mapping, one is entrepreneur and business engagement, and one is, now Ilza is distracting me with her iPhone, one is ecosystem engagement, and one is actually writing the investment strategy. So Randy said that a lot of us didn't know what we wanted to be when we were young. I wanted to be a writer, and apparently now I'm going to be, so thank you guys for this opportunity. So first and foremost, in terms of research and kind of digging into what is entrepreneurship and innovation and how can we invest in it, we know that there needs to be a common language. And so I can look at my friend Varun, because we worked on IDFS together many years ago, and defining what entrepreneurship means can be up for debate. And so we're just taking the broadest definition possible and saying that pretty much any person who owns a business, who has started a business, who is even a second generation in a business, who has an entrepreneurial spirit, who dreams of opening a business, you're an entrepreneur. And now innovation can also be a really big word. Innovation might have nothing to do with entrepreneurship. There's innovation in GoTech. There's innovation in all kinds of things around us. But for us, innovation means that bringing that new product or new idea, something actually new to market. So next slide. So this is not exact. This is an entrepreneurial stack that we think is kind of accurate. So on the bottom, the bulk of the entrepreneurs we think in our region and really nationally would be these solopreneurs, the side hustlers, gig workers, freelancers, micro businesses. Going up a level to first stage businesses or businesses with 10 or fewer people. These can be lifestyle businesses like my yoga business that's always meant to be a very small thing, or maybe it's a Main Street business that like Southern Plenty here in Halifax, or maybe it's a business that's trying to grow bigger to become a second stage and then third stage and then fourth stage. And so those innovation startups are just a piece, just a little sliver of the types of entrepreneurs that exist across the country. And so we know here in rural Virginia that number might be even smaller, but that's just a theory. So we're still, I'll leave the metrics and numbers to Brandon. But just kind of giving you the idea that we're trying to include everybody in the entrepreneurial work that we're doing, but know that that focus on innovation does really matter. So another word is an entrepreneurial ecosystem, and so it's a system of people and relationships that surround entrepreneurs to help them succeed or fail. And so all of you in this room, we have a new job title, Ecosystem Builder. So in terms of mapping, this doesn't look very sophisticated, but it is in ArcGIS, and our GIS analyst is completing the work that will turn this map into one that will be functional and usable so that an entrepreneur could access our directory of ecosystem resources across the region. Randy mentioned earlier, you can easily see our region in at least 3 kind of smaller regions, and so here we have it in those 3. You'll see two shades of green showing the kind of the west, Patrick County, Henry County, and Martinsville. The lighter green is Danville, Pennsylvania. The blue are the Tech Spark counties you heard about earlier, and the orange is kind of the north area. The dots represent the various resources that we've mapped so far. The color coding represents the type of resources. And so if you zoom in, then you see a lot of dots. We'll go to the next slide. So the dots ultimately end up being color-coded based on the type of resource that they are, and so this is just one model of many of ecosystem maps. And so as we talk about mapping, we're talking about literally geographically mapping, but also we'll be mapping it and coming up with an infographic type thing that will show you how big our ecosystem is here in Southern Virginia, including regional and state resources. So as we think about the mapping, it is a lot of organizations and entities listed, but also the contact person will be listed. When you think about the definition of an ecosystem, it's the people. And so a lot of your names and email addresses would be the people that a new business should contact. And so there's different roles that we can all take depending on where we work and what our day-to-day contact is with the ecosystem. This is just one model. I know the font is not really big enough to see, but it has everything from a community champion to a storyteller to a mad scientist to a superhero. The superhero being that entrepreneur who is really a champion and building up your ecosystem, but is also being that entrepreneur, being that successful person who's actually in the trenches as well. And so that's something that's important, not just in the context of this work, but for Go Virginia, since it is meant to be business-led, and we want to make sure that we're engaging those entrepreneurs and including them as we build our ecosystem up. So the question is, where do you guys fit in? And so that's kind of rhetorical today, but you'll be hearing more from me and from our team over the next couple months as we work to complete the development of this strategy. And so think about you as the people, where you fit in, not just right in your neck of the woods, but how you could help and connect across the region. And so with that, I'm going to turn this over to Sheri.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Sheri McGuire, and I think I have the best job at Longwood University. People may argue with me about that, but I enjoy working in the community to build businesses, and we have the most awesome team behind us through the SBDC that covers the region. So we get to work with you all, and we get to work with businesses, and we have a lot of fun doing that. So I'm going to tell you a little bit more about what we've been doing over the past couple months and what we intend to do going forward with this planning process. And Randy mentioned in the beginning the connections across the region being so important and the evidence of those happening. And that's what this whole project is about. We want to make it easier for the entrepreneur to have access to the resources they need no matter where they are in the region, but to have that ability to educate themselves and to build a business no matter where they are. And the same with the ecosystem partners like yourselves. So you can have a place to go, a resource that tells you what's available to build your specific community no matter what micro ecosystem you're in. So easy access to information, easy access to resources, and sustainable. Those are important things that we're looking at in this planning process. So we need input from all of you. And we've had a few meetings around the region, which I'll talk about, but over the next month or two, we'll be going to communities and emailing you and asking you to be a part of that, to tell us about your entrepreneurship ecosystem, what's working well, what's missing in it, how could an innovation strategy for our region make your work more impactful and create growth in our region. So we're hoping that when we reach out to you, you'll participate and be a part of those meetings. We have created a Facebook group for ecosystem builders and entrepreneurs. We encourage you to look that up and be a part of that. We'll be sharing ideas through that network. And as we build the system through InvestSova, there will be other tools that will become available as well. And you've heard about this co-working survey. Lawrence told you a lot about that. what we were hearing, looking at the advancements here in South Boston with the Innovation Hub, we started to hear around the region in our conversations that people want creative spaces and they want the ability to network with each other and just a creative vibe. So we thought that it would be wise to extend the study to the greater region and gather input from all of our counties and all of our population on what does that mean to you? What is the creative space that supports entrepreneurship? Is that needed? And what is the financial reality of that? What are you willing to pay to access those services? And that gives us a good baseline to go from. So please do, if you have any interest at all in that topic, go and participate in that survey. Early on, the SBDC and Microsoft began talking last summer about working with businesses to find out exactly what types of support they needed, particularly technology support. And then when the Go Virginia project, this innovation strategy project came about, it was a perfect opportunity to kind of meld that into a larger project, to look at traded sectors and look at business support in general, because it's very important that we not only attract new business, but we help an existing business grow in the region. And what does that take, and are they getting those resources? So economic gardening, helping businesses grow is very important, particularly in a second stage field. So we had several focus groups. We had 4 throughout the region. With traded sector firms, everything from manufacturing to construction to technology to healthcare. We gathered them around the table with a structured process to find out what supports are important to you within the ecosystem. And here's what we found. Not surprisingly, hiring and retaining talent is one of the top things that came out of those discussions. Next, surprisingly, they want to be involved in economic and community development. They want to see the business community diversified, and they want to help it grow. So opening those lines of communications between economic development and existing businesses is an opportunity. Market research. All the businesses, or most all of them that we talked to, were interested in growing their business, but they wanted more consulting and more help to support that, to make that decision to grow their business. So research support, expansion of business outside the region, which is exactly what we need. And then finally, mentorship and certification. We heard time and time again, no matter what group we were in, that they loved coming together in the room. It was like pulling teeth to get them there. I mean, you guys know how hard that can be. But once they got in the room and started having conversations around common issues, it's like, wow, we need to keep doing that. So the mentorship factor is huge here. So that kind of supports the importance of economic gardening, and we realize there are resources out there for that. VEDP has a very structured program in economic gardening. Edward Lowe Foundation is mentioned here. They specialize in economic gardening as well, and if you're not familiar, it's that stage 1 to stage 2 company that has 5 to 99 employees and is looking to grow. So it's pretty broad. The definition is broad. The important piece is that they're willing to grow. So our goal through this planning process is to identify and connect all of the resources that will help our second stage, and first to second stage companies make that leap and add to the employment roles and to the tax base and grow the region. And I'm going to hand it over to Brandon to talk about metrics.
1 minute. Thanks, Lauren. So thank you, Sheri. My name is Brandon Hennessey. For those of you who do not know me, I'm going to talk a little bit about metrics and KPIs. By a show of hands, when I say metrics and KPIs, how many of you know explicitly what I'm talking about? Okay. Implicitly. So if you're not familiar with metrics or KPIs, metrics are the numerical value in which you look at something. It doesn't necessarily have any benefit to you. The KPI is the key performance indicator. So you could look at the number of jobs for a region. You could look at the employment in a region. It's just a number. What we're more interested in looking at is the trends of things. So where are we? Where have we been? That is where we're looking at census data, some resource databases that we have at the SBDC, such as Infogroup and JobsEQ, to aggregate data from multiple sources to get a historical baseline for things like population, demographics, household income, median income for the household, things of that nature. And then once we're there, we can figure out how we need to progress. So that's like the baseline locality, regional information, and then we actually distilled and created a list of 20 metrics and corresponding KPIs to track things continuously. So I mentioned jobs retained. It could be investment assisted, self-employment. We were talking about gig-based operators. Lauren talked about gig, like side hustle-based entrepreneurship. Tracking that. So if it starts there, how does that turn into first stage businesses? Then how does that turn into second stage businesses so that we can see the overall trend in our region? And so why these metrics? Why these metrics? We found that this collection of metrics, which I've provided just a small sample of them, but these collection of metrics will allow us to illustrate the overall economic health and continuous health of our region, and allow us to see the trend for our region. All right. And so next steps, once again, the InvestSOVA survey. You see it on your table. Lauren has mentioned it. Sheri's mentioned it. I'm going to mention it again. You'll probably hear it another time today. If you haven't taken this survey and you are interested in co-working space, or you know some folks who might be interested in co-working space, share this link with them. Participate in events. You're all here today participating in the all-hands meeting, but if you see an invite from us, an email or a call, we value your input. So please take the time if you're available to participate. Follow us on social media. So you have InvestSOVA, Virginia, and the SBDC. Follow us on Facebook. I think that is probably the most predominant thing that we use. And then lastly, here are contact information for Lauren, Sheri, and I. Okay. Any questions before we hand it over?